Okay, picture this. You're taking a test, you pick an answer, but then you get that feeling, that little nagging doubt. Should you change it?
Oh yeah, we've all been there.
Right. And most of us, well, we hesitate. We stick with that first gut feeling, afraid changing it will actually hurt our score. I mean, even test prep companies used to tell us that.
They did. But the interesting thing is, the evidence actually shows the opposite. Reconsidering your answers, just the act of rethinking, tends to improve scores even if you don't switch in the end.
It's not just the final change then.
No, it's the process.
Yeah.
Pausing, doubting that initial instinct, allowing yourself to think again. This whole first instinct fallacy, it's really just the tip of the iceberg. It points to something much deeper in us,
Which is,
our profound, often unconscious resistance to rethinking, even when, it would clearly be better for us.
and that resistance, like you said, it's not just a minor quirk. It's a big deal, especially now. So today, we're doing a deep dive into this power, the sometimes counterintuitive power of knowing what you don't know.
Exactly. Because the world's changing so fast, right?
Yeah.
Clinging to old ideas, well, it's becoming a real disadvantage. This isn't just about flipping your opinion on something small.
It's bigger.
It's about cultivating a whole mindset, like continuous intellectual agility, being flexible upstairs.
So our mission for this deep dive, we want to unpack why we find it so hard to rethink.
Yeah, and look at the surprising upsides when we actually do it, and hopefully offer some practical ways to get better at it for ourselves and maybe helping others too, even in our communities.
Moving from being what the psychologists call them, mental misers.
Yeah, mental misers, clinging to old views. Moving from that to becoming lifelong learners, people who can actually find, believe it or not, some joy in being wrong.
The joy of being wrong. Okay, I like that. Let's start with the individual level then. Us. Why is it so darn hard to update our own thinking? Shouldn't our brains want to improve?
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
Mhm.
But honestly, a big piece is just cognitive laziness. Our brains are built for efficiency. And often, that means sticking with what we already know, the easy path. Instead of doing the hard mental work of grappling with something new, we sort of seize and freeze on a viewpoint.
Season freeze.
Yeah, we prefer the comfort of feeling certain over the discomfort of feeling doubt.
Right.
And our beliefs can get really brittle because of that, maybe even before our bones do.
That's a powerful way to put it. It really makes you ask yourself, doesn't it? What ideas am I holding on to that might be, boiling slowly without me noticing?
It reminds me of that story of the boiling frog myth.
Oh, yeah, the frog that doesn't jump out if the water heats up slowly.
Right, which turns out not to be true of frogs, actually. They do jump out.
Yeah.
But maybe it is true for us humans sometimes. We fail to reevaluate until it's almost too late.
Like in the Man Gulch fire back in 1949. That's a really tragic example. Smoke jumpers fighting a wildfire.
1949, yeah. Most didn't make it. And many died still clutching their heavy tools, axes, shovels. They couldn't bring themselves to drop them, even when their foreman, Wagner Dodge, told them to.
Yeah, and Dodge survived.
He did. He dropped his tools, started an escape fire, and survived. But for those firefighters, dropping their tools, it wasn't just letting go of equipment.
It was part of their identity.
Exactly, like an existential thing, letting go of what made them a firefighter. And, well, we all carry our own cognitive tools, right? Our knowledge, assumptions, opinions. Some are tied up really tightly with who we think we are.
So the question for you listening is, what tools might you be clinging to? What assumptions or beliefs are maybe holding you back from seeing a better way or even a path to safety?
It's a tough question to ask ourselves.
It really is.
Yeah.
So if we know clinging to these mental tools can be bad, how do we even spot when we're doing it? I know the psychologist Phil Tetlock has a framework for this.
He does, yeah. It's super helpful. He talks about 4 main mindsets we tend to slip into when we think and talk. Think of them like different hats we put on without realizing it.
Okay, what are they?
First, there's preacher mode. That's when we're defending our sacred beliefs, basically giving sermons. Changing our mind feels like being weak, morally wrong even.
Got it, preacher.
Second, prosecutor mode. Here, we're attacking other people's arguments. We're looking for flaws, trying to win the case. Being persuaded feels like losing, like admitting defeat.
Okay, preacher, prosecutor.
Third is politician mode. Now we're campaigning. We want approval, we tailor our message to the audience, maybe flip-flop a bit depending on what's popular. Trying to win votes, essentially.
Right. And the fourth one is the goal.
That's the one, scientist mode. Here, the goal is finding the truth. We run experiments, we test hypotheses, we look at the data, and crucially, We update our views based on what we find.
So in scientist mode, changing your mind isn't weakness.
No, it's the opposite. It's a sign of intellectual integrity. It's how you get closer to what's actually true. The real insight here isn't just labeling other people, it's recognizing these modes in ourselves.
Catching yourself in preacher or prosecutor mode?
Exactly. That's the first step to consciously shifting into scientist mode.
We saw this play out so clearly with BlackBerry and Apple, didn't we?
Oh, absolutely. Mike Lazaridis at BlackBerry. He was convinced, just convinced, people wanted a work device. Emails, calls, keyboard, that was it. He was stuck in that view.
Resisted things like better browsers, touch screens.
Totally. He was kind of a mix of preacher, defending his original vision, and maybe politician, listening only to existing users who like things the way they were.
And BlackBerry just faded. Meanwhile, Apple, Steve Jobs initially swore he'd never make a phone.
Hard to believe now, right? But yeah, but a small group of engineers inside Apple, they had a different vision.
No.
They kept pushing, showing Jobs what was possible, what he didn't know yet.
They were acting like scientists.
They were testing ideas, experimenting, and their ability to get Jobs to rethink his position, that led directly to the iPhone. And, well, the rest is history.
It just shows even brilliant leaders can get trapped by their own convictions. Rethinking often needs a team effort.
It really does. And sometimes the biggest barrier is that we don't even realize we're trapped. We don't see our own blind spots. Which brings us to that fascinating idea, the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Ah, yes, the less you know, the more confident you are.
Kind of, yeah. It's like those cognitive blind spots we all have. Remember that Icelandic election example? Davy Oddsson, former bank governor, zero finance training.
Ran for president super confidently, right?
Right.
After dismissing experts?
Exactly. And contrast that with Helle Thomas Doder, an entrepreneur, start way down in the polls, like 1%. And she openly talked about feeling imposter syndrome, that feeling of not being good enough.
So Dunning-Kruger is like the armchair quarterback yelling at the TV, knows the least, shouts the loudest.
That's a good analogy. We get stuck in this beginner's bubble, totally unaware of how much we don't know. And here's a really interesting twist.
What's that?
Sometimes the smarter you are, the harder it is to see your own limitations. Being good at thinking can actually make you worse at rethinking. It's like an I'm not biased, but biased. We think we're objective.
Oof. Okay, so how do we avoid getting stuck on Mount Stupid, as it's sometimes called?
Yeah. The goal is something called confident humility.
Confident humility. Sounds like a contradiction.
A bit. But it's not about low self-esteem. It's about being grounded. It means having confidence in your ability to learn and achieve things in the future,
Okay.
while also having the humility to question whether you have the right tools and knowledge right now.
Like Hala in Iceland. Her self-doubt wasn't paralyzing.
Not at all. It actually fueled her, made her work harder, seek advice, learn more. She ended up doing incredibly well, came in second, leaving Oddsson in the dust.
So the takeaway for you listening is, doubt isn't necessarily bad. Managed doubt can be fuel.
Exactly. It protects you from overconfidence. It pushes you to ask questions, to test your assumptions, to act more like a scientist about your own ideas. It's really an invitation to grow.
Okay, so that's rethinking for ourselves. What about trying to open other people's minds? That feels even harder sometimes.
It definitely can be. But it often starts with a pretty radical internal shift first. Learning to actually embrace being wrong.
Embrace being wrong. That sounds uncomfortable.
It does. But think about Daniel Kahneman, the Nobel laureate. He apparently gets genuine joy from discovering he's wrong about something.
Joy. Why?
Because, as he puts it, it means he's now less wrong than before. He sees it as the only way he knows for sure he's actually learned something.
Huh. Okay. But how do you get there? How do you find joy in being wrong?
The key seems to be detachment.
Detachment.
Yeah, two kinds mainly. First, detaching your present self from your past self. Ray Dalio, the investor, has a great quote on this. Something like, if you don't look back at yourself a year ago and think, wow, how stupid I was, then you probably haven't learned much.
Okay, detaching present from past. What's the second kind?
Detaching your opinions from your identity. Define yourself by your core values, like, say, curiosity or protecting health, rather than specific beliefs or job titles, like professional lobotomist was back in the day.
Right, because then if the evidence changes on lobotomies,
You can update your practice without feeling like your whole identity is crumbling. It gives you flexibility.
it's like that Yoda line. You must unlearn what you have learned.
Exactly. Look at Jean-Pierre Bougoms, the election forecaster, military historian, but became amazing at predicting elections like Trump's win, Brexit. Things many experts missed.
How did he do it?
By being, in his words, Passionately dispassionate. He detached himself from the usual polling methods, even his own political preferences. He treated his ideas like hunches to be tested, not truths to be defended.
Yeah.
That let him see things others couldn't.
That detachment sounds crucial for navigating disagreements, too, which brings us to this idea of the good fight club.
Right, like the Wright brothers, Wilbur and Orville. They apparently fought together by fighting together. Their family actually encouraged lively debate. They could argue for hours, even weeks, about wing designs or whatever, but it didn't damage their relationship.
Because it wasn't personal.
Exactly. It wasn't relationship conflict, the personal, emotional stuff that just hurts. It was task conflict. Disagreement focused purely on the ideas, the arguments, the task at hand.
And that kind of conflict is actually good.
Research suggested this, yeah. Moderate levels of task conflict often lead to more creativity, smarter decisions. It's been shown in tech companies, hospitals, all sorts of places. There's a great line, the absence of conflict is not harmony. It's apathy.
Apathy. Okay, so how do we encourage that good kind of conflict?
One way is to actively build challenge networks. Surround yourself with people who aren't afraid to disagree with you, to question your assumptions. People who will hold you accountable, but respectfully.
Like Brad Bird at Pixar with his band of pirates.
Perfect example. He deliberately brought in people he knew would challenge the status quo during filmmaking. They fostered that productive task conflict.
And when you are in disagreement, how you frame it matters.
Hugely. Instead of seeing it as a battle to be won, try framing it as a debate. Like scientists exploring an idea, just asking, hey, can we debate this? Signals you're open, you're not attacking, and it encourages the other person to be open too.
It also helps expose something you mentioned earlier, the illusion of.
Explanatory depth, our tendency to think we understand things, like how a bicycle works, much better than we actually do.
Right.
When you ask someone or even yourself to explain the mechanism step by step, the gaps in knowledge become really obvious. It naturally brings humility and opens the door to rethinking. It's surprisingly effective.
Okay, so understanding the other side, framing things as a debate, that helps. But what about really shifting someone's deeply held beliefs? That seems like the next level.
It is. And that leads us towards approaches like motivational interviewing. But first, let's look at that debate between Harish Natarajan, a human, and IBM's AI project debater.
Right, the AI could pull facts instantly, argue logically.
Yeah, it was a machine.
Yeah.
But Harish, the human, actually swayed more people in the audience. His strategy was fascinating.
What did he do?
First, he steel-manned the AI's argument. He didn't attack a weak version, a straw man. He actually acknowledged the strongest points the AI was making about preschool subsidies.
So he showed he understood the other side?
Precisely, which builds connection and credibility. Second, he used a less is more approach. He didn't overwhelm the audience with dozens of reasons. He focused on just a few really strong, cohesive arguments. Too many points can ironically make people more skeptical.
Interesting. Steel manning, less is more. What else?
Questions. He asked questions directed at the audience, making them think for themselves. The AI mostly just asked Harish questions. This encourages self-persuasion. People tend to believe reasons they come up with themselves.
Makes sense.
And finally, like we talked about before, he showed confident humility. He wasn't rigidly certain. It's like that job applicant, Michelle Hansen, who started her cover letter acknowledging where she didn't meet the criteria.
That took guts.
It did. But it showed self-awareness, and it made the employer rethink their criteria. Moderate confidence, admitting you don't know everything, often makes you more persuasive, not less.
This sounds a lot like that vaccine whisperer story, Dr. Gagner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Dr. Arnaud Gagneur using motivational interviewing with Marie-Elaine, the mom hesitant about vaccines. He didn't lecture her or push facts. He consciously resisted what they call the righting reflex, that urge we all have to jump in and fix someone's thinking.
So what did he do?
He just listened, asked open-ended questions. Where did you hear that? What are your main concerns? And crucially, he respected her autonomy, her right to make the final decision.
And she ended up vaccinating her son.
She did. She said later that feeling truly heard, feeling respected, was worth all the gold in the world to her. It allowed her to rethink her position without feeling attacked or defensive.
It's like Daryl Davis, the black musician who befriended KKK members.
Same principle. He didn't argue ideology. He just asked simple human questions like, how can you hate me when you don't even know me? He listened with genuine curiosity. And over time, that simple act of listening prompted dozens of them to question and ultimately leave the clan.
Wow. It really makes you pause and think, how often do we listen like that? Without an agenda, just trying to understand.
Not often enough, probably.
Okay, moving on from individual persuasion, how do we tackle group-level prejudice, destabilizing stereotypes, complexifying conversations? That sounds important.
It is. Think about intense rivalries, like Red Sox versus Yankees fans. People will literally pay money just to stop the other team from winning.
Right, the animosity runs deep. It's based on stereotypes and this idea of disidentification.
Exactly. Defining yourself by what you're not. I'm a Sox fan because I'm not a Yankees fan. It makes the rivalry part of your identity.
And efforts to reduce that, like showing good examples of rival fans, they often don't work.
Right. People tend to dismiss them as exceptions to the rule. The breakthrough came from something different. Counterfactual thinking.
Counterfactual, like what if?
Yeah. Researchers asked fans to list some positives about their rivals, which was hard enough. But then they asked questions like, imagine you were born in New York instead of Boston. Would you really hate the Yankees?
Forcing them to see the situation from another angle.
Exactly. It helped them see how arbitrary some of that deep-seated animosity was. It injected a little dose of humility, made them realize their hatred wasn't entirely logical.
That ties into tackling binary bias, right? Our urge to simplify everything into just two boxes.
Yes, we love simplifying complex issues into black and white, us versus them. The antidote is to consciously complexify the conversation. Don't present just two sides of a coin, show the whole prism.
Like that gun control article example.
Or an article that explored the dilemmas and nuances, rather than just pro versus anti, made readers much more open-minded and less entrenched in their original views.
So applying that to something like climate change.
Instead of just believers and deniers, acknowledge the spectrum. There were at least 6 distinct groups, ranging from alarmed to dismissive. And it's vital to distinguish genuine skeptics who are open to evidence from true deniers who aren't.
Why does this matter so much?
Because when experts, or even just participants in a debate, acknowledge complexity, when they mention caveats and uncertainties, they actually become more trustworthy and persuasive, not less. It counters that tendency towards idea cults that oversimplify everything.
And expressing mixed emotions helps too.
It can, yeah. In really charged situations, if you only express one extreme emotion, it can shut down rethinking in others. But showing nuance, like Christian Cooper did after the Central Park incident.
He refused to just label the woman involved as simply racist.
Right. He acknowledged the complexity that racism involves actions and impact, not just intent, and that people are rarely just one thing. That kind of nuanced, mixed emotional response can signal integrity and actually encourage others to pause and rethink their own snap judgments.
Okay, so we've covered individual and interpersonal rethinking. Let's zoom out now to the collective level. How do we build entire communities or organizations that are good at this? Communities of lifelong learners.
It often has to start early, like in education. Rethinking how we teach, literally rewriting the textbook sometimes.
You mean challenging students to see knowledge itself as something that evolves?
Exactly. Like that social studies teacher, Erin McCarthy. She gave her class a history text featuring only female protagonists. One boy suddenly realized, hey, we're the boys.
Giving him that aha moment about marginalization.
Precisely. It teaches that knowledge isn't fixed, it's constructed, and we need to ask whose voices are centered and whose are missing. It encourages questioning.
This links to the whole active learning versus lecture debate, doesn't it?
It does. Students often say they prefer dynamic lectures, and they rate those instructors higher. But the data consistently shows that active learning group work, problem-solving worksheets, leads to much better understanding and lower failure rates.
Why the disconnect?
Lectures can make students passive receivers. Active learning forces them to grapple, to struggle, essentially teaching them how to think and rethink for themselves. An interesting side note here. Sometimes perfectionism gets in the way. Straight-A students are great at mastering existing knowledge, but they can sometimes be less willing to take intellectual risks, to question things, compared to maybe their B-average peers who might be more comfortable with ambiguity and creativity.
That's fascinating. It reminds me of Ron Berger's elementary school class.
Yeah, the ethic of excellence. Yeah, he taught first graders to do multiple drafts, like 8 to 10 versions of their drawings.
8 to 10 drafts for first graders?
Yeah. They embraced confusion. They had critique sessions like their own little challenge network. They learned that quality comes from rethinking, revising, polishing. It's about the process, not just getting it right the first time.
That's such a powerful foundation and a stark contrast to someone like Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber.
Right. He was part of a psychological experiment at Harvard where his worldview was aggressively attacked. His reaction was hostility, rigidity, and ultimately
Yeah.
Well, when we know the tragic outcome, it highlights how crucial it is to learn constructive ways to handle challenges to our thinking early on.
So how does this translate to organizations, building learning cultures?
Well, we can learn from failures too. Look at NASA, their traditional performance culture, which really prioritized flawless execution over learning from mistakes.
That contributed to tragedies like Challenger and Columbia, right?
Sadly, yes. And even later incidents, like the astronaut Luca Parmitano nearly drowning in his helmet during a spacewalk. Investigations pointed to a normalization of deviance. Small problems or warning signs were repeatedly overlooked or accepted until something catastrophic happened.
So what's the antidote to that?
Psychological safety. It's emerged as probably the single biggest factor separating high-performing teams, like studies at Google found, from average ones.
Psychological safety, meaning?
Meaning people feel safe enough to take risks, to admit they made a mistake, to voice concerns or weird ideas without fear of being punished or humiliated.
And leaders have to set the tone for that.
Absolutely. It requires leaders to model vulnerability themselves. Like Melinda Gates showing a mean reviews video about herself at the Gates Foundation. It signals, it's okay not to be perfect here. It's okay to be a work in progress. It takes that confident humility we talked about.
And it's not just about feelings, it's about process, too.
Yes. Process accountability is key. Don't just judge decisions based on whether the outcome was good or bad. Look at how the decision was made. Were different options really considered? Was dissent encouraged?
Because a bad process that leads to a good outcome is just luck.
Exactly. But a good, thorough process that leads to a bad outcome. That's not necessarily a failure. It's a smart experiment you can learn from. Ellen Ochoa, the former astronaut who became director at Johnson Space Center, she really pushed this. She empowered engineers to speak up and even delay shuttle launches if they had concerns, focusing on the decision-making process.
Okay, one last piece then. Staying open to rethinking our own future, our life plans. That seems particularly relevant today.
It really is. We often fall prey to escalation of commitment. Doubling down on a path, a career, a relationship, a project, even when it's clearly not working.
Yeah.
Just because we've already invested so much time or ego.
Like sticking with pre-med even if you hate it.
Exactly. And even grit, which we usually see as a positive, that combination of passion and perseverance can have a dark side here. It can make us too persistent with failing strategies. It can lead to what psychologists call identity foreclosure.
Identity foreclosure.
Yeah, settling on a sense of self, a career path too early, shutting down other possibilities before exploring them. Michelle Obama nails this when she critiques the question, what do you want to be when you grow up?
As if growing up is finite.
Right, as if you reach a point and you're just done.
Yeah.
But passions often need to be developed, not just magically discovered. And maybe focusing less on chasing fleeting happiness and more on finding purpose actions that benefit others is a more sustainable path, meaning tends to last longer than happiness.
So the big picture is that our lives, careers, relationships, even communities, they're not static things. They're open systems.
Constantly changing, constantly evolving, which means we need regular checkups on our life plans, just like we get physical checkups. Are things still working? Does this path still make sense? You can even practice job crafting, actively rethinking and redesigning your current role to find more meaning or better alignment.
And the reality is the average person changes jobs so many times.
A dozen times or more over a lifetime. Your future self, the ideal job for you 10 years from now, it might not even exist today.
Yeah.
So staying open, staying flexible, being willing to rethink your future is absolutely essential.
Wow. Okay, what a deep dive. We've really covered a lot of ground. From why rethinking is so hard for us individually, that comfort of conviction versus the thrill of discovery.
Right. Embracing that doubt with confident humility, trying to shift from being a mental miser to more of a scientist in our own thinking.
To how we can open other people's minds, building those challenge networks, steel manning arguments instead of straw manning.
Listening with real curiosity, using motivational interviewing, complexifying issues instead of forcing them into simple boxes.
And finally, how we build whole cultures of learning, fostering psychological safety, focusing on process accountability, teaching revision, and rethinking from an early age.
Yeah, it's a whole skill set, really, at every level.
So our hope for you listening is that this encourages you to maybe look at your own beliefs, your plans, a bit differently. See them more as hypotheses to test rather than sacred truths to preach.
Maybe try defining your identity more by your values, like curiosity, like learning, rather than by fixed opinions or roles. Actively look for information that challenges you, that makes you uncomfortable. And remember, sometimes asking the right question is way more powerful than thinking you have all the answers.
Definitely. And maybe a final thought to leave you with. Back during the Great Depression, a time of huge uncertainty, Franklin Delano Roosevelt said something really profound.
What was that?
He said, "It is common sense to take a method and try it. If it fails, admit it frankly and try another. But above all, try something." Admit it frankly and try another.
Yeah. It's a timeless reminder, isn't it? Even when the world seems to demand certainty, maybe true leadership and true wisdom actually lies in embracing that uncertainty and acknowledging when we're wrong and being relentlessly willing to rethink.
Above all, try something. Keep experimenting. Keep learning.
So the question for you is, what will you rethink next?